Hello. Today we're going to make this bookshelf behind me. As you can see, it has two shelves from the top and the bottom that you can use to hold books and a bunch of other stuff too. I use it to hold some musical equipment and books and other things. There are also holes on any of the shelves that you can hang hooks from to hang things like backpacks or, water bladders or other things like that. And on the very bottom, there's a pipe along the bottom that I put in so that I can hold my weights for rucking and bladders and, other stuff, rucksacks, stuff like that. And of course, there's two lights at the top and bottom controlled by this switch that you saw. So join me and I'll go through step by step the instructions and design for how to make a bookshelf just like this. What's up, guys? This is going to be a cool, fun project, and here's the plans to build my bookshelf slash rucksack hanging shelf. And here's kind of the layout. I got two legs on the bottom there, you could see, and also a side beam, which is pretty big, to stabilize the whole unit. It's got basically 4 feet. And it's gonna have 3 shelves on it, and it's gonna have a hanging bar across the center of it so you can hang your rucksacks and your backpacks and your weights and all sorts of cool stuff. This is the list of stuff that I had to buy, which is the connectors for the piping, and I've got it all actually laid out here. There were basically 3 long 4 feet pipes, 2 short 3 feet pipes, 8 sort of nipples, which are about 6 inches, and I think 4 inches for the bottom, for the bases. I got 4 of those stopper end thingies that you would normally hook to a wall. I'm gonna use them as feet. I got a bunch of T-pipe things. I got a couple of elbows, and I got a couple of nubs for the very top. And I got 6 well, actually, these are like electrical ground posts that you can wrap around a pipe. I'm going to use to hold the shelving up. And I got, I think this is 6 feet or 5.5 feet of red oak, which actually turned out to be more expensive than I thought. But it's really good wood, and it's solid, and it's actually quite heavy, so it should be a pretty sweet looking bookshelf. So these are the parts, and let's keep going. Cool. So the first step I want to do is go ahead and build the scaffold for the 2 sides that are going to hold the bookshelf up. And I kind of want to do this just so I have an idea for where to cut holes into the wood so that I could place the wood in. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I have my 4-inch or 5-inch nipples for the base. Then I'm going to put these 2 together just like that. By the way, I haven't cleaned any of this, but I'm going to clean it up when I disassemble it. Put in some elbows. You can see my hands are getting super greasy and gross. Normally I get greasy and gross because of markers from writing on whiteboards, but not today. Special day. I want for a pretty wide base. These are, I think, 6-inch nipples, so across it will probably be more than 12 inches. It's always better to be safe than sorry, especially since I'm going to be using this to hold up pretty heavy stuff like weights for rucking and rucksacks and all sorts of cool stuff. Get 2 of these on. I'm going to go twist this one here. Might not be able to go all the way, so I'll have to actually just use what length I can. Yeah, this is going to be a pretty nice wide base, right? I chose about 3 feet for these small pipes, which is about standing desk height, a little bit higher, because I want to be able to clip on and clip off my rucksack and my weights. I get these little orange nubs off and go from there. I chose 1/2-inch piping just because it was a little cheaper, and I think it'll be stable enough. I don't think we'll have to worry. It's actually even standing by itself, so I don't think. You know, what's the big deal? They had a 3/4-inch pipe and 1-inch pipe. People have used all sorts of different stuff, so. I'll do this side. Okay. Let me get there. Let's clean these pipes, scrub off all the grease from, I guess, the manufacturing, right? I was inspired to do this because my current shelving unit is one of those small shelves that I bought from the store, made out of particle board. It's not really tearing down, I just don't have enough space for all my stuff. So in addition to trying to get rid of stuff, I'm also decided to, hey, why not try to build one of those bookshelves? Okay, I got the second leg built, and I'm gonna go and put the second. Hands are getting nice and greasy and gross. But the good thing is, you know, working with this piping is pretty easy to deal with. In terms of, there we go, disassembling. One of the things I don't like to do a lot, and I'm sure you guys share this sentiment, is move. So whenever that happens, I'm like, no bueno, no me gusta, don't want to do it. Between rucks, in between adventures. So when I disassemble this thing, like if I'm moving, disassemble it, I should say, I'm basically gonna just take the center bar off and that's it, and just take the two sides and then take it with me and then take the boards. So it should be pretty easy to take apart. And this is basically what it's going to look like. And then I'm going to have these two babies set up here. It's actually going to be quite high, about 7.5 feet tall. I probably won't put the shelves up that high, but we'll see. So I'm going to measure this out lengthwise, and it looks to be about 49.75 inches. So that's going to tell me where on those boards to cut the holes so that I can hang the shelf. Next we have to take all these parts and clean them off because there's a lot of dirt and grease and gross all over all of this industrial piping. So we don't want that in our furniture, in our rooms, in our house. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this stuff off while simultaneously disassembling the unit back up. Turns out that the grease, as long as you use detergent, you know, just dish soap basically, comes off pretty easily. And I just lay it back out on this tarp, which, by the way, is pretty awesome. They have cloth tarps over at the Home Depot. It's got a 6x9 foot tarp, which is actually way more space than you need for this kind of project. I thought I needed a bigger one, but it's actually okay. So I go through and disassemble. There we go. Don't need gloves. I can just use these rags. They're pretty thick rags. Pipe down these big, long pipes. And this stuff has a lot of grease on it. It's a lot of gross on it. A lot of grease, a lot of gross. Some tape. Rub off all that grime real good. And this stuff will air dry. And we'll have no problem with it. Okay, so I'm kind of alternating here, and I got sick of cleaning that grease off of those pipes. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to the boards and lay out the holes where I want to go ahead and put the holes in so that these boards can fit through those pipes when I set everything up. So I think we said that the distance between the pipe holes is going to be 49.75 inches, and the piece of wood I got, I think it's about 60 inches thick, 60 inches wide. Yep, just about exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this up so that we can measure twice and cut once. I'm going to go ahead and mark off approximately ½ inch. Of course, I'm going to have to route it a little bit more than that. Maybe like a 1/16 of an inch. We'll see what kind of bits I've got into that. Okay, now it's time to cut the wood. So the piping is ½ inch pipe, which I found out actually means the interior diameter of the pipe is ½ inch. So with the outside, we're realistically looking at probably 5/8, 7/8. And I want a little wiggle room because it's not exactly going to line up necessarily, depending on how tight I twist the pipes and stuff. I need a little give. So I'm going to use a 7/8 inch spade bit. I just picked up these spade bits today. They're brand new. And I'm going to go ahead and drill this hole. Oh, and on the back side of it, I went ahead and put some painter's tape so that it wouldn't splinter on the exit wound. So, get this and start drilling. Besides, I don't intend to put any books near the poles anyway. And the top side looks pretty good. And let's see if the span of my rack will fit in. No problem. Good. So you've got to give it a lot more give than you think you do in order to make sure you have enough room to wiggle things around. And I got one more. So I've got my 3 pieces of board, each with a hole on either side. And let me just check this last one to make sure that it fits no problem. Yep, no problem. Give yourself a little more room just in case. Now I'm going to go ahead and sand this down a little bit with some 400 grit sandpaper. I don't really want to get a whole bunch of sandpaper this time around since I might not use it all. I plan to just coat this with maybe 3 or 4 coats of poly depending on how much patience I have. The poly has stain in it too, so we'll see how this wood takes to stain. And you know, I'm not too picky so far as it. At the very end of it, you can always, you know, clean it and give it some extra sanding to kind of flatten things out. Everything's nice and smooth for your books or your whatever you end up putting on your shelves. Pictures, photos. So you can always change that after you apply layers of poly. And the imperfections actually, in my opinion, adds to the character of. Just go ahead and make sure I sand the sides too a little bit. Things. as well. I'm going to recess them about an inch from the edge and about an inch deep into the thing, which is going to give me about, I would say, enough room to hang a hanger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And because you never know, plus it also looks really cool, I'm going to make 5 of them. 3/8 inch drill bit. I think that should be enough for a hanger, yeah? Yeah, I would say so. And I think this wood will be fine, as long as I be very careful. Yeah, this is perfect. Five utility holes. And we got a hanger here so we can test it. Seems to fit just fine. So I can hang my gym clothes on the way out the door. Okay, so I've got my extra utility holes drilled into this board and the other boards, and I'm going to go ahead and apply my polyurethane polyshade. We'll see how it takes, maybe a coat or two, and see what we get from this. Here's the polyurethane. I don't want to hold it up too high, I'm going to spill it all over myself. And I'm just going to take light coat. You're best to use a nice cloth tarp. You can wash this tarp. And you can see immediately, wow, look at how nice that's digging. This is going to be a really nice red. And one of the things that I learned from doing a little bit of woodwork before is, man, you want to use the light coats and let it dry, because you do not want this stuff to run. You get drippies all over the place. I'll just do the sides real quick, just so it gets a little taste. Okay, on to the second board. So you can see here, the other one's drying. Looks like it's got a 6-hour dry time for the first coat, and that's only one side. So this project may take longer than a weekend, which is what I'd hoped. After laying down several coats of poly day and night over the past couple of days, I'm finally ready to go ahead and give it the last sanding. So it just takes some 400 grit sandpaper and well, I don't have a sanding block or an eraser like I used to use, so I'm just using a piece of towel and just go ahead and sand it down. Be sure not to go too hard on it. I mean, we're using pretty fine grit sandpaper, so, but you don't want to remove the layers of varnish and poly. So you could see that we have a nice dark color after, I think, 3 coats. So it looks really good. So we just go here and sand it down. Some of the dust sorts of comes up as you're sanding it down, and it gets smoother and smoother as you go through it. There was a lot of drip in parts and places, so I tried to go lighter and lighter so that it wouldn't drip, and you could always just pop those bubbles and let it dry out, and then just sand over it and then apply another coat. So for reference, the backside underneath here actually is very rough, and the top side ends up getting very smooth, so you can start to feel that. when you get down to it, you're gonna have to end up sanding the edges a lot too. And you want to make sure that you really sand it down really good to make sure that it's nice and smooth. The edges tend to be a lot more rough because they may not have gotten as much of the poly coat on it. I'll probably have to recoat this again, or at least put just some only poly with no stain. Probably gonna do one more coat, but the edges of the shelf tend to have the most drip if you weren't careful, and I just sand that stuff off and go from there and just sand it all down. And as you go through these, you want to check the other boards to make sure you kind of get a nice even sanding for all three of them, depending on how coarse you like it. I'm going to try to get this as smooth as I can, and you know, that way I don't have to do this again if I decide one day that it's not smooth enough and then I take my whole furniture apart. But this is pretty solid wood, so it should last a very long time. Now for some of the electrics. What I'm going to do here is I got these pipe ends that take a half-inch pipe and output to about 1.25 inches on this side. And I also got these nice sockets which have a little bit of wire dangling from them. And the pipe configuration I decided to go for is going to look something like this. We take these two ends together, put them together, and then you end up with an angle like this. And I'm going to put one end facing this way and the other end on the other side facing this way. You can swivel them so they can light up at an angle or down at an angle. You could even swing them out this way if you want to light in the center of the room. You might notice that the lighting is a little different. The light bulbs I have are actually daylight light bulbs, so we should have plenty of light when we actually go ahead and do this. So, for the sake of stripping the wire, I've got a whole bunch of this stuff. You just crimp a little bit of end. I left my wire strippers back home, so I don't have them with me. You have these exposed ends, and then we take a little bit of heat shrink. I mean, if you want to do this proper, you should really do it with a soldering iron. And go ahead and put some solder to make the joint super strong. But I mean, I've done this before. As long as you crimp it in there good and heat shrink it really good, it's going to conduct, it's going to connect. So you should be okay. Take this, take a little bit of heat shrink. I'll just do one for now. Slip it over one end of the tube. Say this black one, I'll do the ground one on the lamp wire. Okay, just slip it over. Pull the other end off. And then on your other wire, take some of this stuff. I like to twist it and braid it to make sure we have a good contact. And then I take this end, and it's already twisted and braided, so that's good. Go ahead, bend it over this way, and I like to get them to cross. Really, you should use solder. In fact, I'm probably going to get some solder. You slip this end over, and then you use lighter or the edge of your soldering iron and you burn it through so that this is not going to move. And that's it. Here's a diagram going over the wiring in more detail. I had a plan for the shelf which had on the top side a right side light and a left side light, and we see in blue, or the darker lines, the piping structure of the bookshelf. There's going to be a switch on the right hand side, which is this little box in the upper right, and it's right here. And we're basically going to run wire from the lower right of the bookshelf through the floor through a plug and run it through the switch, through the first light bulb in the upper right here. Then it's going to go down, back through the pipe, across the rucking bar to hang stuff from, up through the other light bulb here in the left, and then back out through the middle bar, down back to the ground, where we're going to expose a plug that we can plug our bookshelf in. So this is the wiring that we generally want to do, and you have to cut all the leads and solder all the leads to the light bulbs, to the dangling switch on the right hand side through a box, to complete the electrical wiring so that your lights work. Product which shows the lights all nice and even, and light switch on the far right. And I put in 2 shelves in the result, and I kind of set them apart a little close. And you can see that I have my rucking equipment along the bottom on that bar, and you know, turns out to be pretty stable, you know, in terms of having everything, which is good. Those are the foots. You could see the little rubber footing that I used, and here is the left hand side. I just have it plugged into the wall. I put the extension cord there, just, I don't know why. It's probably moving it around a little bit. And here at the shelving, I use these locking spacers. These are actually for electrical grounds. They actually work quite well. One on the top, one at the bottom for both shelves. So 4 per shelf, and it keeps things fairly stable. Here's my switch. I gotta put the back plate on and the lighting. One thing that I really liked is how this wood came out. So if you look at this it's got a nice deep color, which is really nice. And yeah, I'm gonna put some books here and then get everything all set up. I gotta clean because everything's kind of a mess at this point in my room. So this is the end result. So if you're interested in building a nice shelf like this, then hope you've enjoyed, and good luck building your own shelf.